In this shorter one, I want to talk both a little bit about the services and the pricing chapters. Services are and products kind of fall on a continuum. They talk about a pure commodity good, something that is really not differentiated. And the typical one that's often used is salt. There's a formula for salt. It's sodium chloride, NaCl, and salt is salt is salt is salt. And so it's a pure commodity good. Anybody who sells salt sells the same thing. Now we know that's not quite true. We might have somebody who does salt for melting ice. Well, then it's usually pelleted and it's served in a bigger bag and stuff like this. But still, when we talk about it, we're still, sometimes there's additives to it, but we're still pretty much to this pure commodity. On the other side, we might have something that's a pure service. For example, local inquiry desk. Sometimes you go to a hotel, or not, well, a hotel could be that way, or maybe an airport in an area that you've been. Sometimes there's a customer service desk, and all they do is try to help you find accommodations or tell you where different things that you can do or see in this particular area. And so it's just purely service. They don't really sell you anything. They just sort of give you directions. Education tends to be pure service. You don't walk out of here with a product unless you keep your books or notes or something like this. But what you do come out is something intangible. It's in your head. It's there. And then we've got stuff that's kind of all the way around there. Usually we see restaurants fall somewhere in the middle. We certainly have products. We eat them, we drink them, whatever. But we also have services involved. And, it's a very big difference between the sort of service you get at McDonald's and maybe at a 4-star restaurant. So some intangibility stuff along with that. And things tend to be more pure commodity good or more pure service in this whole continuum on here. It's very, very difficult to find a product, too many products that are at the far ends. Most of them fall somewhere in between. So some of the distinctive characteristics of service is that they're intangible. Was this a good service experience or not? Well, sometimes it's just based on gut feeling. We can't necessarily always see, smell, taste, feel a lot of the services that are out there. They're a little harder to understand. And so we get some really interesting things with advertising. For example, insurance. So it's pretty intangible. We're getting really heavy on that intangible side or that pure service side. But so what do? Well, we're trying to sell you peace of mind. We're trying to sell you protection. We're trying to sell you something that helps you with things. And you think of some of the classic commercials that have been out there for insurance. For example, like a good neighbor, State Farm is here. Oh, yeah, so somebody's there to take care of us when we have a problem. Or it's better under the traveler's umbrella. And so this idea of this umbrella that protects us from the rain and all the storms that are around there. So again, trying to put a little bit of tangibility in the customer's mind about what's going on with a particular product. Services tend to be inseparable from the person giving the service. If I want my hair cut, a service, I have to go to the beautician. She cannot mail it in. Now, that's not always, is true with other things. We can have some services where we have, for example, artificial intelligence who responds to certain things. Okay, in that way, it is sort of separable from the person who actually built this system or the person who may actually provide something, but we can augment it with something like artificial intelligence. So it's inseparable from the person who's providing it. If you want that service, we have to get together. Now, there are some services, for example, if I come and clean your home, you may not have to be at home. Or if I have a pest control service, I can come and spray for bugs or whatever around your house, and you don't necessarily have to be there. But I do have to be at your spot. So this degree of inseparability from the person who's providing it. There's also variability. For example, if I go and get my hair cut, and if for some reason my usual beautician isn't available, and maybe she's got to be gone that week, but she's made arrangements for me to get my hair cut by somebody else, it may or may not look quite the same way. If my beautician has had a horrible fight with her husband that morning, it may not look the same way as she normally does it. So, we have this variability. You go to McDonald's and one time it's a great experience and another time you're like, oh my, I know why I never go back there, because the service variable. Anything we can do to automate parts of it. For example, now at McDonald's, they put the cup under and they push the button and the drinks come out. You don't have to worry about somebody underfilling or overfilling. It's pretty much automated this time. So automation can sort of reduce that, but you can't reduce it all. And then perishability. Perishability means that if a service isn't used, it can't be used. Now, the photo I've got in there is of an airline, and that's a good example about this because we're really selling a service that's very heavy service-oriented, although we do use some products and things with this. And so the intangible things about this might be the fact that there's a little bit more room, the fact that the stewardesses and hostesses are dressed in a different way, the fact that we have different sorts of food, and again, there's some tangible parts to it, but there's also a lot. So what sort of amenities are offered during this time? Do we have movies? Do we have TV? Do our chairs recline? So the intangibility of this, I can still fly from here to there, standing up in a hot plane with no food or anything, but the distinctive characteristics that might make it a much more pleasant thing. Inseparability. If the pilot doesn't come, you don't fly. Vice versa. The pilot is producing a service that most of us cannot replicate. There's some variability. You certainly get a hostess with a bad day, or you certainly get a pilot that maybe isn't paying attention, and there's an extra bump or something in the air that they have. So it can vary. Your plane may be early, your plane may be late. It's not necessarily the pilot's fault, but it could be due to weather, or it could be due to somebody in the ground crew, which again is another service. And of course, perishability. If the seats aren't full, they can't save those seats for something later on. There's a lot of ways of differentiating the service, and let's say that I wanted to put a media room in my basement. First of all, I don't have a basement, but secondly, I don't think I'd have a media room either. But the service can differentiate on something like on how easy it is for me to get this, to order this. We had an incident back a few years ago where we had a rental house, and we were trying to get carpeting and linoleum replaced in it, and it was just such an ordeal because we couldn't ever get the right things, and once we thought we had it, well, no, that's no longer here, and that's great, but we can't do this, and we can't provide something for it. So the ordering, it just took forever and ever and ever to get this material ordered. Is it going to be delivered, and how do they deliver it? I have seen some delivery people who practically drag stuff, and there's potentials for damage and stuff. Or maybe they deliver, but it sits out on my front porch, and I've got to get it into my house and whatever. What sort of installation? Do they do it for you? Can they contract for you? How long do I have to wait? How complicated is it? Is it going to mean if I put in a new dishwasher, does it mean I'm not going to have a dishwasher for 2 or 3 weeks because I can't get the installation scheduled? Is it going to be messy? Is it going to be dirty? What's going to happen with that? How difficult will this be, this media room? I'm not a real technology person. How hard will it be for me to learn how to use this, and how much training will they do? I mean, I had a situation where I was trying to learn a new software, and all they wanted me to do was to watch videos. Well, I really needed to stop the video and try something and then come back to it, but I couldn't do it because they were both on the same platform. So I had to stop one and do something else and then come back. And, if I'd had a manual beside me, it might have been a little easier to watch and do the steps side by side. So how the training is done. How much the customer is consulted on what they want and the amenities they want and how it's done, maintenance and repair. When something happens, how quickly can we get out there and get things done? And so we all have expectations of what we want, but services can help you differentiate between this. You can be everything from more or less do it yourself to, full service, here it is, congratulations. Now, I want to talk a little bit about pricing. You have a whole chapter on it, and I just really, there's a lot of materials that I'm going to post on. I have posted in this lesson as well that you can download and look at a little bit, but I want to kind of briefly go through some of the things that we've got here. Marketing penetration. This is particularly true if I'm trying to get into a new market, so I might want to set my prices relatively low so it attracts a lot of people. That's market penetration. Optional pricing, and it's very closely related to one that's your book called Byproduct. Basically the same thing. You can drop the price of your primary product because you've got all these ancillary things. The book, I think, used a meat, and you'd have some byproducts from that we can make into other things, so we can keep our more expensive meat prices a little bit lower because we're able to sell things that we would normally throw away or wouldn't have much of a market. In optional pricing, we can also look at one of the favorites is the printers. The inkjet printers are very, very low price, but you pay a lot for the inkjet cartridges. That's also something that's sometimes known as number 5 as captive pricing. Once you buy that particular model of printer, you're pretty much stuck with the ink that goes for that. And so you're held captive. Gaming systems, it might be a way of being held captive. The whether you use cable versus satellite television sort of locks you into what you can and can't see. So there are other things that kind of do this. And so captive pricing, like optional pricing, we get you in with a low price for the main whatever it is, and then we charge you a lot of extra for the other things you can do. Psychological pricing really covers a whole lot of different things. Psychological prices, one of the things is quality. If I offer you 2 objects and one is $5 and one is $45, you may tend to assume that the $45 one is a better object. Well, it could be identical. And the one example that I use often is something like butter. Butter is like salt. There's a formulation for it, and butter is pretty much butter. We do grade it in the United States, but grade A butter is the same all the way around. A diamond, a particular quality level of diamond, is identical any place you buy it, but you're going to pay less at Walmart than you are at a jewelry store. And, but the psychology, try telling your fiance that you brought a ring at Walmart rather than some fancy store. If she's an accountant, or if she's very frugal, she might applaud that you've saved some money. But on the other hand, there's a psychology behind it. Psychology also goes into things like how do you think that the buyer feels about selling something? For example, if I have my grandma's heirloom something or other that I have to part with because I really need the money, because I really, really need the money, well, then you're probably going to give me a lowball price. But if it's something that I have that I can't, I really like it because it belonged to Grandma and I don't know that I really want to sell it or something, well, then, if you really want that from me, you may have to pay more. We feel different about a periodic sale than we do a going out of business sale. So psychology a lot. Sometimes psychology is based on the last time you paid a price. The last time I paid that, it was X number of dollars. So is that price higher or lower? And how does that make you feel? Have you saved some money? A lot of things. We love sales because we feel frugal for doing that. Bundle pricing is a way that you can buy all these things separately, or you can buy them for a price that's lower than the individual thing. So we try to get you to buy more because, if we sell you a core of something, then you may or may not add all those extra things that we have with it. On the other hand, if we produce it in a bundle and we offer it to you for a special price, even some of the things that you don't think you really use, you might take that. Vacation packages, a real good example for that. Airline and hotel and several meals and all the meals included, these all-inclusive, all the meals included. Well, that's great, for some people. But some people like to go and explore other restaurants. They don't always want to eat at the same time. They want to see a dozen different things. So the bundle pricing may or may not work well for them. Cost plus pricing, generally, for example, occasionally somebody will ask me to make a quilt for them. And so what I do is basically cost plus pricing. This is how much it's going to cost me for the material and my labor, and a little bit of profit on that, and that's what it's going to be. If you've got a larger quilt, it's going to cost you more. If you've got a smaller quilt, but it's a real complicated design, that may still cost you about the same. So cost plus, we add these things together and to come up with something. Value pricing, again, we see this also with something called price lining that's not on this thing, but in price lining, we usually try to give you some options. Sears used to be really wonderful at it, and sometimes you see this at other like appliance stores and things where you would walk in and here is their good refrigerator, here is their better refrigerator, and here is their best refrigerator? Well, the prices, as you can imagine, good is inexpensive and better is more expensive, and of course the best is the most expensive one, and generally they have features and stuff to do that. But you can also say, instead of good, here's the value priced one, so it's a good deal for the money that you spend, and then it's a good solid workhorse, going to do what you need it to do, but not so much. Competitive pricing. And this is something particularly I talk with entrepreneurs. I'm going to do this and I'm going to charge less than the competition. Why? Well, it's not going to cost me as much to do this because I'm not, this big organization. That's true, but your customers are willing to pay for that. And so if your customers are willing to pay $5 for this, why, if you charge $4, sure, they'll buy from you, but you're leaving $1 on the table that could be profit for you. So where is the competition, and where do you want to be within the competition? Maybe your product is sort of middle of the road, so you want to be sort of middle of the road in pricing. On the other hand, if it's much, much better, maybe you want to be a little bit more expensive. On the other hand, if it doesn't have quite all the quality, maybe you want to be a little lower. So you price your product in reference to that. Premium pricing, again, goes back to the idea that price might be quality. So if you're paying a little bit more, sometimes you feel like you're getting a better product. Oftentimes you are, but sometimes it's just that. Market skimming, this is a type of premium pricing. Usually we use market skimming if we are maybe the first person in the market, or if I go abroad and I'm the first person in this country selling this particular product, I can set the price relatively high. And so I'm only going to skim off the top customers for that. But going back to that life cycle model, these people are the innovators. These people are the early adapters, and they're really interested in something when it's new and different, and they're willing to pay extra for that because they want to be among the first. So market skimming is something that you might start off with in a new market where you have very little competition for a short period of time, and then you're generally going to go back for that. Well, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much psychology behind this, and again, the handouts that I've given there will give you some more details. Again, think back about your products, where you are, and the strategies that work best for you, and see what you can come up with.